Perfect. Thank you so much. So, can you tell us about how you came to take over Geysers?
I wouldn't call it takeover.
Yeah, no, tell me.
But
yeah.
So I've lived in Easton now for almost 10 years. And when we first moved here, I was still commuting into New York City as a journalist. I was actually a business reporter.
Oh, very
So I've
good.
written a lot about women in business and small business,
Cool.
and women in science and technology. And I got tired of that commute, so I started freelancing from home. And when you're a freelance writer, you're always looking for cool coffee shops to go to with your laptop to work.
Sure.
And every time I drive past this corner, I would think, that place would make such a great coffee shop. So after 6 years of freelancing for Yahoo as the small business reporter, I met and interviewed so many, literally thousands. I was writing 3 articles a week,
Wow.
every week for 6 years. So that many small business owners I met, and I was just so inspired by them. And I thought that would be neat to figure out what kind of a small business I could
very cool.
start or own. And then coincidentally, I stopped in here one day to go to the post office, and Dick Greiser was standing outside, and I just started chatting with him and said, what are you going to do when you retire? Will you ever sell this building or rent this out? And he said, come on in and talk to me. I said, because I just have this vision.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, here we go. Let's talk. So we spent, that was in June 2017, and we spent about a year talking about it and just kind of saying, well, what would it be? Just would I rent the front room? Would I rent the back porch? Or what would it be?
Yeah.
Just coffee? Would it be a market? What would he get out of it altogether? And ultimately, we came to this arrangement, and there he is now. So we signed a lease last summer, and he did some work for me inside, taking down walls. He let me keep his refrigeration equipment, which made my startup costs a lot lower than they could have been.
Good.
And I also worked with, I took this 8-week class with an organization called SCORE. It's sponsored by the Small Business Administration, and it's a league of retired entrepreneurs, or not all of them are necessarily retired, but they're just people who have run businesses and want to volunteer their time to help other entrepreneurs get started.
That's really cool.
So it's all free. You can get assigned a mentor, and I took an 8-week class with them at the Norwalk Library called Simple Steps to Starting a Business. And they helped me write a business plan, figure out, do a financial model, and they assigned me a mentor who is a man in Southport who has a ton of experience in retail, because I'd never run a retail business. And so that really helped me figure out how much money I needed to start, and then I opened on November 1st.
That's great. Wow. Could you take us through a typical day at Geysers here? Like what you'd be doing, who you'd be talking to?
Sure. Well, the store's open on weekdays from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So our first person arrives at 5:30 in the morning, and that's been a young guy named Ryan Morawski, who was my first hire. In fact, I didn't even know when I started how much help am I going to need.
Yeah,
and you don't want to commit to hiring people full time right away, because if you don't have that much business, then you're it's not fair to them. And Ryan did have a full-time job at at Tuscan Cup.
Oh, cool.
And he couldn't leave there unless I could give him full-time hours, and I couldn't commit to that. So I said, what if you give me just some of your free time? I'll pay you. So he was here for our opening day. I said, come for opening day, I'll just pay you as a consultant, because you're going to make these great coffees. He does beautiful latte art.
Really? That's awesome.
And so he was here for that first day and just was blown away by the reception we got from everyone in town, and said, if you want to hire me, I want to work here. So we just agreed, let's just see how it goes the first month or two. And I think I hired him full time like 3 weeks later.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So he's the opener, shows up at 5:30, turns on the lights, makes the coffee, gets the espresso machine going,
Cool.
gets the sink and kitchen area all prepared for the day, bakes the croissants, that kind of thing, gets the cash register going, and he works serving all the commuters until someone else comes in to help him, usually around 9,
Gotcha.
when we start getting busier with the moms in town after they've dropped the kids off at school, and some of the people who work from home and come down and hang out. And then we have a lunch crowd, and we make sandwiches every day. My job is doing some of that work behind the counter, as well as keeping on top of what we're running out of, what needs to be ordered, and then finding new products for the market. That's the fun part, because it's like getting, my job is to shop.
Yeah.
And then planning, doing marketing, deciding on the signage and Facebook and Instagram posts, and I've been working now for like 6 months trying to get our website up and running, and then management in terms of just like doing the payroll every week and doing the schedule, assigning hours. Typical day then, and so we close at 6, and depending on who's here, today in the afternoon Chimmy is here, so she's the closer.
Gotcha.
And she can somehow clean and organize the whole store and be out of here at 6:30.
Wow.
If she's not here, it takes me until about 8 p.m. to do it myself.
Oh my goodness.
So she's worth every penny. And that's the most important thing, is that the people I've hired are really good at what they do, and they make my life a lot easier, and they make the store run really well.
Very good. So you're still relatively new. Has business been going well? Have you met any, ups and downs? Can you speak to any of those?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so we just celebrated our 6-month anniversary
That's
on May
great.
1st, and it's been really fun, just getting to know everyone in town, and we're totally on target. I mean, it was pretty amazing to me to stop at one point and look back at the financial model that I put together with SCORE and realize how accurate it was. At the time we were doing
that's
it,
really
I felt
great.
like, this is just making up numbers. How do I know how many cups of coffee I'm going to sell in a day?
Yeah.
Or how much money I'll make on a bottle of Coke? But I guess if you do that stuff right, if people know what they're doing, it predicts pretty well what you're going to do. So we're doing well enough that I can say we're going to keep going. And in terms, some people have asked me, like, what's the most surprising thing that's happened?
Yeah.
And to me, it's been how many local artists and craftspeople in Easton have just come out of the woodwork and said, would you be interested in selling this? And so we've got, beautiful crafts in the store, from soaps and candles that are made with Easton beeswax, to the wooden bowls that are hand turned by a man in Easton from trees that have fallen down in Easton.
Wow, yeah.
And greeting cards, maple syrup, patty pops, marinara sauce, and popcorn sells like crazy. There's a man in town who makes honey. I've sold, I don't know, maybe at least $500 worth of his honey, maybe 1,000 in 6 months. Lee Scalcos' artwork is a huge hit.
I was actually going to ask you about that. So with these different people, do they approach you? How do you sort of how do you formulate, like, how you sell their products, and how do you work that relationship?
When you're buying inventory from a distributor, like most of the food products, and then some of the things you see, like the tea towels or the notepads, those I have to buy from a company,
A big name, yeah.
that sells to me at wholesale, and
Gotcha.
then they give me a suggested retail price, and I sell it for that. So that's how I make money.
Makes
But I
sense.
have to put out that money
Yeah.
to make money. The really awesome thing about the local artists is that they're all selling here on consignment, and that means that they bring their things in, we agree on a price, and that means that they tell me how much they need to make, and then I add on a margin to that. So I don't have to give them the money until the thing sells.
Oh, makes sense.
And from what most of them have told me about what the consignment or commission most stores take, what I'm taking is really fair, and they've told me that. Like, I'm not taking 50%, which is what a lot of places take. I'm taking much less than that. But it's still great for me, and I think it's great for the community.
Definitely.
Right now we have this Mother's Day pop-up shop of jewelers for women who are customers of the store who also make jewelry. So
So it seems
that's how that works.
really building that community aspect. Because
Yeah, and for the artists too, we've done a few now receptions where at the beginning of we'll hang art around the store, and at the beginning of the exhibit we'll have a little opening reception where people can come in. We'll stay open late on a Friday night. People can come in and meet the artist and mingle, and so it's part of what has helped to make this like a little social hub for a town that I think we were lacking before.
yeah, that sounds really
In a
nice.
certain way.
I have a question. It's so you're telling us that you did, business journalism.
Yeah.
Did you always know that you wanted to go into business? Did you study that at school, or?
No, I knew I wanted to be a journalist.
Oh, so you went the journalist route, and it
Yeah.
turned to the business
Yeah,
subject.
I loved journalism. I was the sports editor for my high school newspaper.
Oh,
I went
great.
to college as an English major, and then I was an editor for the college paper. I started my own underground newspaper in college.
Oh, wow.
The Feminist Ghost at Boston College, which only lasted a semester.
Sounds really cool.
And then I, ended up in business and technology journalism.
Cool.
But one of the things I love about the kind of journalism I did, it was, when you're editing a magazine, and I did trade publications for the most part, and specialty publications, the magazine is really serving as like the hub of a community, because so I started a magazine in New York called Genome Technology back in 2000 that was for the genomics biotech industry, which was brand new at that point. That
Yeah.
was like, these were all the people who were sequencing the human genome, and they were on the West Coast, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and Boston, and really all over the world. And this was a brand new growing industry. So our magazine was the first one to cover that industry, and it became like a little connector for that community. We would have events at the trade shows, and everyone who subscribed to the magazine got to know each other because we were putting them on the cover. And so in that way, I feel like having a shop like this is kind of like having a magazine.
Yeah.
We're editing the content that's in the store and creating a sense of community and connecting people who come together around
That's
this
really cool.
spot. So that's the way I explain like how I got from journalism to owning a coffee shop.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that's so interesting. Everything sort of interconnects in some way, so it's
Yeah.
really great that you took that
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, I
made
mean,
it relevant here.
my fantasy was that someday, if I would retire from that kind of journalism and be the editor of a small town newspaper,
Yeah.
because I really wanted what I've gotten out of Prizers, which is just feeling like I know everybody in town and I know what's going on, and it's happened really quickly. Like, I just posted on Facebook today that I walked into the town hall yesterday, or not town hall, the Staples to vote for the budget.
Yeah.
And for the first time in the 9 years that I've lived here, I walked into the polls and I knew everybody.
Oh wow.
And that I've served them all coffee
That's really
in just
great.
6 months. Yeah. So.
So what would you say is your favorite part about having this job?
The people.
Yeah,
just,
right?
Yeah, that. Just being able to, I feel like I'm having a party every day.
That's really cool.
Being a hostess of a party every day. I love it. And I mean, there's something really special about people in Easton and our community. I mean, I know I would not be having this experience if I had a coffee shop in New York City.
Yeah.
You know? It's really makes me, I felt like Easton was a magical place when I discovered it, when we were house hunting, but it's true.
Oh, and I had the question of, you run this by yourself, or do you have a partner?
A business partner? I don't have a business partner. My husband has been incredibly supportive, but he has his own small business.
Oh, cool. What does he do?
He owns a landscaping business in town.
Oh, very nice.
So since we started in November, it wasn't his busy season, so he was really able to help a lot with the first few months. Now he's back to work full time, and he doesn't even have time to come in for coffee anymore. But also, there's a guy behind the counter today, Brian Ebsery, who is an old friend of my husband's, who his whole career has been in the food business. He was a manager for Whole Foods. He managed an Eau de Lis cafe down in Greenwich. So he's been a lifesaver. He has helped a lot with like guiding our menu and ideas for the food section. And even he used to own his own store down in Greenwich, a cooking goods store, the Craft and Cook. So you'll see him. I just saw him in there. He's like just rearranging things to make it look
as great as it
good.
can.
So he's not a partner in the financial sense, but he's been really, really helpful.
Yeah, no, it seems like your staff is just they're an incredible bunch of people.
Yeah, I really
seem
lucked
to
out.
help you in different ways.
I really lucked out because that was when I was, getting into this. I happened to turn 50 last year, and I went on lots of 50th birthday excursions with my girlfriends who were also turning 50. So I traveled all over the country last year.
Oh wow!
Just for different parties. That happens. And so every town I went to, from like Minnesota, Boulder, Colorado, Telluride, San Francisco, Albuquerque, Santa Fe. I did all that the year. Now I'll never go on a vacation again. But I went to coffee shops and asked the owners like for tips, and all of them said like the biggest headache is managing employees.
Really?
That because of this is a business where most people who come to work as a barista are just doing it to make some extra money while they're in school, or because they really want to be an actor.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's people aren't necessarily reliable. It's not great.
Yeah.
It's not a salary, and I haven't had that
But
problem
you
at
found
all.
that that's not an issue.
No.
That's great. So what improvements, or what do you see in the future for Kreisers?
Well, one of my inspirations is a store that's in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, which is that I grew up in that area, and it was started by a woman I knew as a 20-year-old, and it's called Tallulah's Table. She's a chef and her whole life's experience has been in managing restaurants and businesses like that. So I don't expect to be able to replicate what she's done, but it's a market by day, and by night she serves one seated meal for between 8 and 12 people, and it's a set menu, and someone reserves that table and comes with a group of 8 to 12 people. They bring their own wine, and she serves them this 10-course meal that people have said is I forget the name of the actor who wrote in the New York Times that if he was going to be executed, that was the meal he'd want before he went to be executed. Some really, really
That's
great
really
press.
cool.
But she's just created this really amazing experience that people call in to book that reservation 1 year ahead of the day of the reservation.
Goodness.
That's how hard it is to get a reservation.
Hello.
So we can't do exactly that here because we don't have a kitchen and we aren't zoned to have a kitchen, but I love that idea, or being able to do something like that as we expand, or if we can grow, like expand into the back room
So
or
you
downstairs.
potentially want to branch out and sorry. You said something about zoning. So what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so you know that in Easton, in I think it was 1945, the Board of Selectmen changed zoning in town, the way I understand it, to make all of Easton residential.
Oh,
Residential zoning. And the only commercial zoning, there is no commercial zoning, so the only commercial entities are those that were grandfathered.
Oh,
So the Easton Village Store existed back
interesting.
then,
Okay.
Silverman's existed back then, and Greiser's too. And so these are the only places that are allowed to have businesses.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
So
That's really interesting.
this building, this business is considered a non-conforming use. Like the property we're on is zoned residential, but we're allowed to have commercial because it was a pre-existing non-conforming use.
But it gets touchy with the.
But yeah, when
developing
I
of
went to
it.
town hall, I had to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission with this idea, and they had their lawyer write a letter explaining what was allowed and what was not allowed. And so when property is a pre-existing non-conforming use, you can, a new business here can intensify the existing business, but it can't expand on the existing business. So
Intensify.
I
Wow.
can sell more coffee and more sandwiches and more sodas than Dick Greiser was selling.
Yes.
But I can't expand into, I can't sell motorcycles from this shop.
Yeah.
I can't expand, I can't add on to the building. I can't, expand on the
Gotcha.
footprint of the building. I couldn't build a wing out the back that has a kitchen in it. So
Yeah.
that's what that means.
Gotcha.
About zoning.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you have any questions, Sarah?
I have one. So, what kind of advice would you give to someone who is going into business or just interested in that world?
Very good question.
Only do it if you really, really, really love what you're gonna do. Don't do it just for the money. Yeah, I think being driven by a passion or your heart and soul is really important to your success.
Yeah.
And I'm putting in more hours and time now than I ever imagined I would have to. But I love it anyway. So that would be advice. And the advice that I got from the people at SCORE and the mentors is one of the biggest reasons businesses fail is that they don't start out with enough capital.
Yeah.
So before you start anything, you really want to have a grip on what are your costs going to be and where are you going to get the money, and is it going to really let you do the things that you want to do before you start generating real profits from the business. So one of the ways I was able to get money for the business that was almost like icing on the cake was this. Have you seen the mug, the cupboard of directors in the store?
No, we're gonna check it out after.
Okay, so a girlfriend of mine who's married to a guy from Westport. She does pottery as a hobby, and she said to me when I said I'm going to start a coffee shop, she's like, well, I'm going to make your coffee mugs. I
wow,
want to
that's
do that for
lovely.
you because you're my friend and you're, doing this thing. So she made me more than 100 beautiful coffee mugs.
Wow.
In this teal color that I love, and she lives out in San Francisco, and she would bring them every time she came out east in her wheelie bag suitcase, and then she'd pack her kids' wheelie bags with mugs. So I ended up with this 100 coffee mugs, and then someone else, Patty Pop, said to me, people in town want something like what you're doing so badly, you could probably do a crowdfunding. And so I don't know, if you've read anything about crowdfunding, there's different ways you can do a GoFundMe, which is basically just asking people to give you money because they like you and they want to support what you're doing. Or you can do an equity-based crowdfunding where people are basically investing in your business in exchange for a small share of ownership in the business. But I didn't really feel like either of those made sense for what I was doing. I didn't want to give away ownership and have people telling me what they thought I should do.
Yes.
I just want to do it the way I do it. But I also didn't feel like this is a business. It's a real business that's going to make money. So I didn't want to just ask for donations. So instead, what we did with the mugs was to say to people in town, we've got this cupboard, which my husband found on Craigslist for $175. That beautiful English cupboard in there. We put little name plates on it and said, if you will support us at the start of our business by establishing a $500 coffee account, you'll get a mug with your name or your family's name on it.
Oh,
So
that's
it kind
really
of creates this
cool.
community
I like
cupboard.
that.
And I was blown away by how many people were willing to do that.
Yeah. Wow.
They would, give me their credit card. I take $500 off of it, and then every time they come into the store, they say, I'm on the cupboard. I call it the cupboard of directors, and so we just pay for their coffee out of their account. So it wasn't a donation, but having that much money up front helped let me buy a lot of my inventory.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's created this great feeling, that people, it is, a store for the customers, and I want people to feel like at home and they have their own mug here. So it's been super. So coming up with creative ways to find money is another piece of advice.
Got it.